Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for your extraordinary public service, for your, particularly in the last few months, your decisive and courageous advice to the President, which led to the successful raid against bin Laden. It would not have been as successful or as effective without your participation. And thank you personally for your friendship over many years. Let me return to the topic of Afghanistan. We're looking at a decision shortly that will be based on conditions on the ground, but it strikes me, and I think implicit in what you said in your testimony, those conditions on the ground might be more relevant vis-a-vis Pakistan than Afghanistan. That in fact, as long as the government of Pakistan at least appears to see some of these groups, these terrorist groups on their soil as strategic assets and not liabilities, that our operations in Afghanistan are going to be very, very difficult. And so going to the real conditions on the ground, your comment on whether those conditions are really more about Pakistan than Afghanistan, and if our effort, our strategy, our focus has to be there as much as Afghanistan and better focused. And I would also include in this context some type of regional dialogue, including Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India. Your comments, Mr. Director?
I would agree with that, Senator. I think it's pretty clear. You know, we can't succeed in Afghanistan if we're not succeeding in Pakistan in terms of controlling the safe havens and the cross-border operations. And so we've got to work at both in order to ensure that we're able to stay on path with what we would like to achieve in Afghanistan. In addition to that, I agree with you, this is a regional issue. And to the extent that the countries in that region can work together and relate to each other instead of being suspicious of each other and creating the kind of dynamic that frankly has not been very helpful, I think it would be in the interest of peace in that region if we could get all three to continue to work together to advance the same goals.
One of the points that I believe your predecessor, and I too will join my colleagues in commending him for exemplary service. Indeed, one of the challenges you have is following an extraordinarily talented, successful, and decent human being. You've got you'll do it, I know, but you've got a challenge. Secretary Gates pointed out how important non-DOD operations were. The Department of State, agricultural operations, Department of Agriculture. You know, now we're getting also into the specter with these violent climate episodes throughout the globe of, you know, scientists in NOAA and others. And yet there's a real danger here that those budgets might suffer. And in Afghanistan, my colleagues on the Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday released a report criticizing sort of the build stage of the operation. Can you comment upon that partnership and how critical it is? And again, when we look ahead at the conditions on the ground, we could be successful interdicting terrorist groups, seizing caches of weapons, even interdicting transmission from Pakistan. But if there's no political capacity or governmental capacity, healthcare, education, or anything, we're going to still have a population that's disgruntled and probably destructive towards us.
Senator, I agree with what you said. It has to be a whole-of-government approach as we deal with these issues. Clearly, State Department plays a very important role in providing assistance to individuals to ensure that an area remains secure, AID, education area, Justice Department provides assistance. The area of agriculture also provides important assistance. You know, look, I know the Department of Defense is our primary military weapon in terms of securing areas. But if we don't follow it up with these other important assets, we will never be able to fully secure these countries.
Let me change topics for a moment. It strikes me that, and this is not particularly a brilliant insight, but You know, I'm old enough to remember when there were three dimensions of conflict: air, land, and sea. I did some land stuff, and technically air because I jumped out of airplanes, but there's a whole new dimension, cyber. I don't think we know enough yet to be fully prepared, fully conversant, but can you comment briefly on the strategy that you will try to develop? I presume that strategy will involve some deterrence, it'll do preemption, offensive, defense, and as was just indicated, the policy now of just, you know, within the context of the rules of war, you know, what would constitute some type of casus belli. I think this is you're stepping in at a critical moment where we're just beginning to develop a strategy for a new dimension of warfare that we've never really confronted yet, and your leadership will be critical.
There is no question that the whole arena of cyber attacks, developing technologies in the information area represent potential battlefronts for the future. I've often said that there's a strong likelihood that the next Pearl Harbor that we confront could very well be a cyber attack that cripples our power systems, our grid, our security systems, our financial systems, our governmental systems. This is a real possibility in today's world. And as a result, I think we have to aggressively be able to counter that. It's going to take both defensive measures as well as aggressive measures to deal with it. But most importantly, there has to be a comprehensive approach in government to make sure that those attacks don't take place. So I will be, obviously I have a huge responsibility if confirmed in this new position in dealing with the cyber area through NSA and others. My goal will be to work very closely with them and with others to develop not only the capability, but also the law that I think we need to have in order to determine how we approach this challenge in the future.
Just a final topic, and really echoing what Senator McCain said, Senator Chambliss and others, is that there is an acquisition bow wave coming as you recapitalize and innovate our military forces. And that's been pushed off a bit. It's been deferred a bit, but it is coming. And one of the aspects, as Secretary Chambliss pointed out, was it's not simply the sheer number of systems that we have to buy, land, sea, and air, and others. It's the price tag on each one of these systems. And I know Secretary Carter has been working very hard to make affordability part of the design, but all those efforts are going to be absolutely necessary because there'll be no room within even a generous budget to do everything that has to be done unless we make significant progress in that area. And just your comments again, Mr. Director.
Well, there, in the briefings that I have had, it's obvious that that this is an area that we've got to pay a lot of attention to because of the efficiencies, because of competition, because of the nature of expanding contracts that have taken place there. We've seen these weapon systems grow in cost. It takes an extraordinary amount of time to be able, you know, from the beginning of moving that kind of weapon system to the time it's finally developed, finally deployed, it almost becomes outdated. We have got to improve that process. I know the Congress has taken steps in that arena, but I look forward to working with you and with the members of this committee to take greater steps to make sure we are looking at every possible efficiency in the procurement arena in order not only to save dollars, but to make sure we are getting better equipment as a result of that.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you.